Hello everyone. So today I am going to read the second chapter from this book, The Concise Yoga Vasistha by Swami Venkateshanand. It's translated in English by Swami Venkateshanand, and the actual book is pretty old and attributed to Valmiki. Earlier we saw the first chapter which covered Ram's dispassion about after his return from his pilgrimage, and upon realizing the world's transient nature, its suffering and futility of pursuing desires. So Ram covers a range of topics. He talks about the different stages of lifetime and how it doesn't make sense to pursue anything in this material world. It's very transient. And after that, Vasistha starts with his discourse. So the second chapter is titled on the behavior of the seeker. The stress is mainly on the importance of self-effort for a seeker. Vasistha is rather critical to the idea of fate that many of us have, the importance people place in this idea of fate. So it's very critical to that. So let's start. So Vasistha says, in this world, whatever is gained only by self-effort. Where failure is encountered, it is seen that there has been slackness in effort. This is obvious, but what is called fate is fictitious and is not seen. Self-effort, Ram, is that mental, verbal and physical action which is in accordance with the instructions of a holy person. Self-effort is of two categories, that of past births and that of this birth. The latter effectively counteracts the former. Fate is none other than self-effort of a past incarnation. You can see how Vasistha highlights the importance of self-effort. He clearly states that even what we call fate is self-effort of past incarnation. In our society, you'll find many people who blame everything on Niyati and saying that all the results are because of fate. Vasistha is critical to that aspect as well, saying that fate is also not a God's will. God is not deciding your fate. Fate is decided by your own past actions in the past incarnation. There is no power greater than right action in the present. Hence, one should take recourse of self-effort, grinding one's teeth, and one should overcome evil by good and fate by present effort. So he clearly mentions that you can overcome fate by your effort in the present moment, and there's nothing powerful as the right action in the present. So the action of the present has this power to override your fate. A lazy man is worse than a donkey. One should never yield to laziness but strive to attain liberation. One who says, fate is directing me to do this, is brainless, and the goddess of fortune abandons him. So we need to understand this very important point, that even your fortune, what we call fortune, the goddess of fortune will abandon someone who says that fate is directing me to do this. Such person is worse than a donkey. At this stage, it was time for evening prayers and the assembly broke up for the day. Then Vasistha began the second stage discourse. He says, as is the effort, so is the fruit, Ram. When afflicted by suffering, people cry, alas, what tragedy! Alas, look at my fate! Both of which mean the same thing. The present is infinitely more potent than the past. They indeed are fools who are satisfied with the fruits of their past effort, which they regard as divine will, and do not engage themselves in self-effort now. So, for people who are lost in their good fortune and they enjoy it, they need to realize that it is nothing but the fruits of their past effort, and it will also end. And it's best to engage themselves in self effort in the present moment. One should free oneself from likes and dislikes and engage oneself in righteous self effort and reach the supreme truth, knowing that self effort alone is another name for divine will. Self effort is based on these three: first, knowledge of scriptures; second, instructions of the preceptor; and third, one's own effort. Fate or divine dispensation is merely a convention which has come to be regarded as truth by being repeatedly declared to be true. In this world, except a corpse, everything is active, and such activity yields it appropriate results. So, every activity will yield its result. It's only a matter of time. Then he says, some people say, I am impelled by fate or divine dispensation to do this. They say that, okay, fate has forced me to do this. But can a young man would become a great scholar if just merely astrologer predicts it and he does not study it, right? He still has to study. He even gives the example of Vishwamitra. He says, look at Vishwamitra. This sage Vishwamitra became a Brahma Rishi by self effort. All of us, all the sages in the court, have attained self knowledge by self effort alone. Hence, renounce fatalism and apply yourself to self effort. The cosmic order that people refer to as fate, we call it Niyati, Daivam, Niyati, which ensures that every effort is blessed with appropriate fruits, is based on omnipresent and omnipotent omniscience called Brahma. Vasistha then tells Ram about 4 gatekeepers at the entrance of realm of freedom, moksha. The first one, self-control; second, spirit of inquiry; third, contentment; and fourth, good company. So there are good Hindi words for all this. For self-control, spirit of inquiry, Janan maybe. Contentment is tripti, to be content with whatever you have. And good company is nothing but satsang. A wise seeker should diligently cultivate the friendship of these, or at least one of them. So even one of them, if you find in life, it will lead you towards the moksha, your liberation. So on first point, self-control, he mentions, when the mind is at peace, pure, tranquil, free from delusion or hallucination, untangled and free from cravings, it does not long for anything, nor does it reject anything. This is self-control or conquest of mind, one of the 4 gatekeepers of liberation which I mentioned earlier. So one important point to note here is that when your mind is really at peace, neither it engages in longing and neither does it rejects anything. So many of us underestimate this point. The idea of rejection, right? That a peaceful mind or an ascetic should reject things. They should not have any objects of comfort, or they should walk barefoot, they should have minimum clothing, they cannot go in cars and all. So there is heavy criticism. Osho was one of the examples of such figure who was heavily criticized for living a very affluent life. But we need to see that the craving as well as rejection, if someone is actively rejecting the basic needs of life as well, that is also not a sign of a mind which is at peace. The second point being, he says, no gain or pleasure in this world or in heaven is comparable to the delight of self-control. So no matter what you crave in life or what you reject, even if you get all the objects that you think would make you happy, still there is nothing like the delight of self-control. Self-control, Ram, is the best remedy for all physical and mental ills. When there is self-control, even the food you eat tastes better. Otherwise it tastes bitter. He who even while hearing, touching, seeing, smelling and tasting what is regarded as pleasant and unpleasant is neither elated nor depressed. He is self-controlled. So we need to understand this one very important point, that the idea of being emotionally in control, being in equanimous in our emotions, it's one of the ideas highlighted in Hinduism. A lot of importance is given to this particular aspect of mind, like not to be too elated or depressed in our emotions and thoughts. Even our culture and body language is somehow how reflects this. So you will find people in the East, for example, not that vocally expressing their thoughts or emotions, unlike in the West. Things have changed, of course, now, but if you see in the West, people are very vocal about their emotions. But you'll find in the Eastern cultures, it is not so, and a lot of importance is given to be in a balance, not to be too elated and not to be too depressed. Next, Vasistha talks about the second gatekeeper of liberation, that is inquiry. So inquiry is needed for the keenness, to develop the keenness of the intelligence, so that it is able to realize the supreme. When the mind has been rendered dull, this is a very important point here. When the mind has been rendered dull by the absence of inquiry, even the cool rays of the moon turn into deadly weapon. The non-inquiring fool is really a storehouse of sorrow. It is the absence of inquiry that gives rise to actions that are harmful to oneself and to others, and to numerous psychosomatic illnesses. So, Guru Vasistha highlights the importance of inquiry, and I believe that somehow in the present world, in the age of smartphone, we are losing that keen sense of inquiry and wonder that we used to have. By always being in a consuming mode, by not giving our mind some empty time to think, to ponder, to inquire into the basic questions, we are somehow losing that aspect from our lives. The ability to wonder and question the very existence of our universe, the very idea of self. So these inquiries we are losing by being always in a mode of consuming information or entertainment. Then he talks about contentment, the third point. Contentment is another gatekeeper to liberation. He who has quaffed the nectar of contentment does not relish cravings for sense pleasure. And he mentions one very important point, like as long as one is not satisfied in the self, he will be subjected to sorrow. And finally, the fourth gatekeepers, that is satsanga, or the company of wise, holy and enlightened persons. On its importance, he says, satsangs enlarge one's intelligence and destroys one's ignorance and one's psychological distress. So in summary, he says that contentment is the supreme gain, satsanga is the best companion, the spirit of inquiry itself is the greatest wisdom, and self-control is supreme happiness. And finally, one very beautiful point, he mentions that though human in origin, an exposition of truth is to be accepted, otherwise even what is regarded as divine revelation is to be rejected. Even a young boy's words are to be accepted if they are word of wisdom. Otherwise, reject it like a straw, even if uttered by Brahma, the creator. So in summary, through this particular example, Vasistha highlights that Hinduism is not bound by rigidity, and the ultimate value in Hinduism is truth. He clearly mentions that even divine revelations are to be rejected if they are not based in truth. So our religion gives us that power. Even if Brahma, the creator himself, is telling you something, but if it doesn't resonate with you and it's not truth, then you should reject it. And at the same time, even wisdom comes from a child, you should be open to it and accept wisdom. So one aspect of it is that wisdom can come from any place, truth can come from any place, and we should be open and be willing to accept it even from a child. Commandments and divine rules have no place in Hinduism. It is eventually the idea of critical inquiry and truth that ultimately matters. That marks the end of this chapter. Next we'll move to chapter 3 called On Creation. See you next time.